Today is the beginning of Donald Trump's second impeachment trial, and I'm sure a lot of people don't care. And I'm sure there are a lot of Biden voters who now have regret because they probably thought if we vote for Biden, it'll all go away, and it won't. Well, now we have a new class of Biden regret voters, and this time we have this funny story about the head of the AFLCIO, this really big union, who endorsed Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden explicitly said that he was going to be ending the Keystone Pipeline and banning drilling on federal lands. Now you've got this interview clip from Axios where Jonathan Swan's asking, the head of the AFL-CIO, how do you feel about this? And the guy's just like, oh, yes, that's right. You may be in this union. Maybe you know somebody who is. I'm rather surprised. I mean, look, a lot of people probably hate Trump. But what's really amazing is the cut off my nose to spite my face kind of attitude of many of these union guys, especially the union boss, who was like, it's going to be a nightmare for everyone that I'm supposed to represent. Their jobs will be lost to the tune of tens of thousands. But Orange Man bad. That's great. Take away someone's livelihood and industry and then tell them to learn the code or do something else. Now, this AFL-CIO guy is desperately trying to justify why Joe Biden was right. Well, but Joe Biden promised green jobs. He'll do that. No, he won't. Come on. And even if he did, who's to say that if you worked on constructing a pipeline, you're going to be able to work on any one of these green projects? Now, let me stop. You don't have an argument, a discussion about the actual pipeline. That's something else. What I'm talking about is Biden regret. These people who voted for the guy and now are saying they're going, hey, wait a minute, why did I lose my job? Now, before we get into all of that, I want to point out something very fascinating. With Jen Psaki, she is the White House press secretary. During the Trump years, we got to see endless bouts between these, I'll do air quotes, journalists who were throwing ridiculous, nonsensical questions at Trump's team. And it was a waste of time. They were always in bad faith. And you had Jim Acosta who would just fight. And it's so annoying. I don't care. You have this famous moment where Caitlin Collins of CNN takes her mask off as soon as the press secretary leaves, not realizing she's still being filmed. The mask was all for show, apparently. Well, now we have Fox News' Peter Doocy asking a fairly simple question in a professional tone with Jen Psaki, and you get exactly what you'd expect. The tables are turned, my friend. The unprofessional left. When Peter Doocy asked, let me show you this story. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki sparred with Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy on Monday after he pressed her to address expected job losses stemming from Biden's executive action to cancel the Keystone XL oil pipeline. They say Biden revoked the permit, and more than 11,000 Americans are expected to use. It was going to employ more than 11,000. Doocy asked Psaki to comment on when the workers who lost job opportunities due to the executive order could expect to receive a green job as a replacement. Quote, when is it that the Biden administration is going to let the thousands of fossil fuel industry workers, whether it's pipeline workers or construction workers who are either out of work or will soon be out of work because of executive order, when is it and where is it that they can go for their green jobs? Legitimate and good question. Biden promised this, and according to the head of the AFL-CIO, he said, I believe Biden will follow through. Okay, simple question. So when? Honestly, just, what's your timeline? Do you think you'll have something in the works? Doocy referenced Biden's pledge to create high-paying union jobs through investments in green energy infrastructure projects. In response, Psaki called on Doocy to present more evidence to back up his question. Quote, well, I'd certainly welcome you to present your data of all the thousands and thousands of people who won't be getting green jobs. Wait, what? What do you mean? There's 10,000 people or whatever that are out of work. I expect the jobs to immediately vanish. He's asking when you'll be launching a project or when we can expect new green jobs. What kind of question is this? Psaki said, maybe next time you're here, you can present that. I love it. When you have Kayleigh McEnany, when you have her as press secretary, she has to come with this big binder full of data because they're like, prove it, without evidence. And now when Doocy asks a question, when do you plan to have these new jobs available? Like, what will Biden be doing? They say, prove that they won't be. What do you mean prove they won't be? We're waiting for you to actually do it. Right now, there's nothing here. Doocy said, but you said that they would be getting green jobs. So I'm just asking when that happens. Ducey cited a recent claim by Laborers International Union of North America that Biden's decision to cancel the pipeline would cause 1,000 union jobs to immediately vanish and eliminate 10,000 more construction jobs. He also noted recent remarks from AFLCIO President Richard Trumka, a longtime Biden ally who recently told Axios and HBO that he disagreed with the president's decision. I wish he hadn't done that on the first day because the Laborers International is right, Trumka told Axios. It did, and it will cost us jobs in the process. I wish he had paired that more carefully with a thing he did second by saying, here's where we're creating jobs. Oh, shut your mouth, Trumka. You know that's not going to happen. Okay, let me slow down. It may happen, all right, but it's not going to offset the losses from Keystone. And I am not a big fan of Keystone. I understand that there have been many oil spills. Many people counter by saying, well, when they transport the oil by freight, then you have even more oil spills. So, look, it's a fair point. If you want to have an argument about that, we can have an argument about Keystone and talk about its merits, its pros, and its cons. We're talking about whether or not these people's lives will be completely destroyed. The AFL-CIO, I absolutely despise unions, but I love collective bargaining. Let me explain. I've been a member of several unions. Some of them are kind of meaningless, like I worked at a grocery store. But I was also a member of the transportation union in Chicago. I hated it. There were people who just reaped the benefits of being the union leaders, getting extra money, and then didn't do anything to help anyone. It also made it particularly impossible for me to actually accomplish anything because everything was union contract, union contract, union contract. You could be doing a good job and they say, we don't care. You don't get a raise. You don't get time off. It's in the union contract. I don't like that. If it's for you, that's fine. You do it. I quit. That's my thing. I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. I felt like it wasn't fair to people. And I was actually friends with some of the people who ran the union. So I wasn't doing too bad, the executive board members and et cetera. So I was getting, relatively well-connected hookups and stuff like that. But I didn't like the idea that there are people who would like to ask for something. Hey, I did a really good job. I'm working tons of hours. Is there room for growth? No. Union. If you like that, that's awesome. I got no beef. I personally don't, so I left. Hey, more union for you, less for me. I think everyone's happy. When I look at this, it's the exact reason why I despise these things, these unions. The AFL-CIO endorsing Joe Biden, selling out his own members for what? The orange man is bad, I suppose. Fine, whatever. Let's read a little bit more. Psaki noted that Trumka also mentioned in the same interview Biden's plan to create more union jobs through green investments. As the president has indicated when he gave his primetime address to talk about the American Rescue Plan, he talked about his plans to also put forward a jobs plan in the weeks or months following, Jen Psaki said. He has every plan to do exactly that. Biden's shutdown of the Keystone Pipeline drew bipartisan criticism in recent weeks, with Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas and Democratic Senator Jon Tester of Montana among those who pointed out the expected job losses. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he was disappointed by the executive order. So you have Trudeau and Democrats and Republicans saying, bad move, Biden. Well, look, I understand there are activists that are rather happy with this. The bigger issue for me is, do these people who voted for Biden, did they realize they were ending their careers? For the most part. Okay, maybe they'll get their jobs. They say the issue marks an early challenge for Biden, who told supporters just before the presidential election that he would be the most pro-union president you've ever seen. Well, the story we have from the Daily Caller, AFL-CIO head appears uncomfortable in Axios interview about Biden and Keystone XL. I love this photo they chose where it looks like the dude's having a heart attack. But yeah, I watched the interview from Axios. This dude was conflicted. It seems like he just hates what Biden is doing, but he is such a spineless loser that he just goes along with it. Yeah. Well, we all heard about the shadow campaign from Time magazine, and they say it was an advisor to the head, a former advisor to the head of the AFL-CIO who helped organize this mass, conspiracy? Is that what Time magazine called it? Seems ridiculous, but yes, they did. Who organized it. So I wonder if this guy was part of that. And now he's like sitting there watching his industry get gutted. The best part is, look, while this guy is safe because he's the head of the union, he's not going anywhere. It's the little guy who's getting purged. he still does see less union dues, so I'm sure he's still kind of upset about it. But it's not just him. We have the Wyoming governor, Mark Gordon, slamming Biden for devastating executive order banning oil and gas leases. The AFLCIO guy says basically the same thing. You know, he was, this is really funny. I got to hand it to Jonathan Swan with his interview because, you know, I criticized him when he interviewed Trump because he was doing this thing with his face where he was like looking confused and angry all the time. It's like, dude, chill, man. In this interview with the head of the union, he's like, so Biden plans on banning drilling on federal lands. And the guy goes, well, you know, the AFL, the union guy who supported Biden is like, well, I hope he looks into it and we need to have a review of this. And then Swan goes, he's doing it. He promised to do it. And then union guy's like, yep, pulling on his collar, is sweating. Oh, no, I supported this guy. Uh-oh. Well, that's what you get, man. I'm not going to complain about it. You voted for it. Whatever. I mean, you should be happy with your decision, right? I voted for Trump for a variety of reasons. He's far from perfect, mind you. But there are a lot of things I really liked, and it is what it is. You know, Joe Biden wins. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm trying to move on with my life. This guy, it's really amazing to see how much he's reeling. I mean, you really got to watch the video just to see this dude's like his face when he's being asked these questions by Swan. Because he really is just like, look at, he's like wincing. He's like, well, you know, you get what you get, man. When you vote for Donald Trump did things that a lot of people didn't like. But a lot of his supporters, the overwhelming majority, really liked what Trump was doing. And it was because people believed in him, that he was fighting back against the establishment, even when he didn't get exactly what he wanted. It wasn't this idea that Trump was selling you out. It was the idea that Trump tried and failed, which is very, very different. When Trump wanted to build the big, beautiful wall from sea to shining sea, and he couldn't do it, the Trump supporters didn't say, oh, you've betrayed us. Well, some of them did. Most of them said, border security is what we really wanted. Trump will, you know, do what you can do. When Trump couldn't get things done, his supporters believed he was still trying. With Joe Biden, he straight up told these people he was going to decimate their industry, and they voted for him anyway. Well, I can say this from an environmentalist standpoint. If you really did believe Joe Biden was the right person and you think we must get rid of Keystone even at your own expense to save the environment, well, good for you for standing on principle. And you may be out of a job, you may be destitute, but standing on principle, I respect. Something tells me that these people don't believe that, though, and they probably believe that Keystone was better for the environment because transport by freight results in more oil spills. That's the rebuttal that I've heard. Maybe it's not true. I'm saying you can have that argument somewhere else. But if somebody wants to argue that, by all means, maybe they're staying on principle. So, OK, I'll respect that. I want to jump over to something somewhat related, but still, not entirely. $15 minimum wage, my friends, because we have this report from the Wall Street Journal. They say a $15 minimum wage would cut employment, reduce poverty, CBO study finds. Nonpartisan study says wage increase would cost 1.4 million jobs, but lift 900,000 people above the poverty line. That's amazing. Is it really a nonpartisan study? Because I got to tell you, that's exactly what conservatives said was going to happen. You'll see these videos from like PragerU, where they'll explain you have 3 people making $10 an hour. So they're all like, I want to make more money. So a politician comes in and says, we want a $15 minimum wage. There's still only $30 to go around. So what happens is one person gets fired, and then that money is split between the remaining employees to see their wages go up. It is not a solution to the problem. It will only make things worse. Now, it's not necessarily in line with the same story, but it does show that we have research suggesting those who voted for Joe Biden because they want a $15 minimum wage will likely regret that when a third of them lose their jobs. I mean, a third of them, it's probably a lot more. I mean, 1.4 million people will lose work. That to me is crazy. I saw this meme post on Facebook, and it made me laugh. It was a guy who's tweeting. He says, I am an electrical engineer and I build power lines. When I hear that they want to give $15 an hour to a burger flipper, I celebrate and cheer with my burger flipping friends because a rising tide raises all ships. I love the meme. I'm like, dude, that guy will celebrate. He'll high five the burger flipper. And then the next time he goes into McDonald's, the burger is going to be another $1 or $2 in cost because the money has to come from somewhere. These people seem to think that there's evil businessmen going, yeah, I'll keep the wages down for no reason. Certainly there are companies that do this, but many companies have budgets for how much they can afford to pay their employees. Small businesses have razor-thin margins, especially in the burger flipping industry. So this guy shows up one day and he goes, hey, it's my burger buddy. High five. Let me get the double bacon with extra cheese. What do you mean $10? It was $8 the other day. $10. Oh, geez. So then, now that his lunch is more expensive, it's putting a strain on him. He goes to his boss and says, look, inflation, man, I need a raise. I can't be making $15 an hour because the burgers cost $10 now. They went up in price. Don't you get it? These people don't understand what they're voting for. They voted for Biden because they want to see a minimum wage increase, but it's not going to actually do anything. Okay, no, I'm sorry. It will lift people out of poverty. Okay. Are you saying that you would sacrifice 1.4 million people to save or to benefit 900,000? The people who are living below the poverty line are probably not doing all that well. But how is creating 1.4 million unemployed people with no income the solution when you have 2.1 million people below the poverty line? I'm sorry, 2.3. You have 2.3 million people below the poverty line. We'll raise less than half of them up and fire the rest. This is what they vote for. They do it all the time. To me, it feels like emotional manipulation, right? That what we really see is you've got 2.3 million votes. They're all saying, we want better living. I can respect that. Everybody wants better living. Joe Biden comes along and says $15 an hour, guaranteed. The 2.3 million people vote for it, while a Republican screams in their face, they will fire you. You're going to lose your job. And they go, not me. It'll happen to someone else, but not me. You're fired. Wait, what? And they're out of a job. It's basically what happens with this Keystone Pipeline thing. You have these people who vote for Biden thinking, what? He told you he was going to do this. Look, when Joe Biden comes out and says, I will terminate your job and you vote for him, I go, you know what? You voted for that, man. All right. Don't look at me. I can't do anything for you. When Joe Biden says, I'm going to raise your wages and these poor people vote for it and then lose their jobs, now you got me mad. Because these people did not realize, for the most part, that this would destroy their job. Now, they show this picture of this woman loading up some fried chicken. I don't know what it says. A KFC worker in Plano, Texas in October. Thank you for this stock image. I'm sure she's happy with having a job. Maybe she dreams of something bigger and not loading fried chicken into an oven. People have ambition. I can respect that. But look, I worked pretty crummy jobs before I started doing what I do now about 10 years ago. And even when I started doing this, it was all sacrifice, saving all of the money I made and sleeping on couches until I had enough to invest in myself and start growing and doing something. Now I have a business. Now I employ people. There are a lot of people who would prefer to have any job over no job. Take a look at the people who are in the streets with the newspaper crumpled up and a spritzer bottle. You pull up in your car and they walk up and they spritz your windshield and start wiping newspaper on your windshield. And when this happens to me, I go, oh, geez, they're just making it worse. They're not cleaning, but they're doing it because they're trying to make money. The reality is there is no such thing as a minimum wage. Now, it may exist legally, but let me explain. People who are in the streets who are wiping down windshields are willing to do that for nickels, for pennies, for dollars. They may make way less money than someone working at KFC, but wouldn't they rather? Therein lies the big problem. I want people to make more money. I want people to have a base standard of living. I want people to have health care. I want people to keep their jobs. It's not always so easy. Maybe Keystone needed to be shut down. I don't know. The left seems to be outraged by it, like Trudeau and Democrats. So maybe Biden's just nuts. When it comes to people working these jobs at KFC, would they be happier making $1 an hour spritzing your windshield or making $10 an hour putting fried chicken in an oven? I'd imagine it's putting fried chicken in an oven. There's an interesting debate about this and about, sweatshop labor overseas, but these are fairly different just in the sense that When Nike sells a shoe for $200 and it costs $10 to make because they're paying people a quarter an hour to make it in a warehouse in Vietnam, yeah, that's very, very different. If the people who are running these big companies, these corporations, are making billions and millions in profit for themselves, then we need to have a conversation about paying these people more money. But you need to understand the cost, the budget per restaurant. Just because the CEO of McDonald's makes millions of dollars does not mean that if you could give everybody a raise. I don't know how many employees McDonald's has, but it's probably in the tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. This is one thing the left doesn't understand when they say tax the rich. If you taxed all of the wealthiest people in the country, my understanding is that you'd write everyone a check for $1,000 and then you would have nothing left to tax. It would be over. You'd spend the money and then everyone would be poor again. It doesn't change anything. Now, my big issues with the ultra wealthy is their influence on politics and their control of the system and property and things like that. But I digress. The point is, there are important discussions to be made in fast food work, in what they call low skill work. Personally, I would like to see people make $20 an hour or $30 an hour by serving this food. The challenge is the cost, the monetary amount is less important than how much society values the labor of the individual. If a burger costs $20 at McDonald's, like I'm talking like not their dollar menu or if they even have one anymore. I'm talking like you go in there and you're like, give me a Big Mac. And if like, that's $20. You're going to be like, it's not worth it. The Big Mac's just not that good. I'd rather just go to the store and make my own burger because the labor of the burger flipper isn't worth what you get. And you'd rather do it yourself or go to a better restaurant. Then the restaurant collapses. We have to figure out how we increase the value of the labor at that level, but we might not be able to, especially now that kiosks are coming into the picture. So look, the general theme of the segment as I wrap things up, be careful what you wish for, man, because you will get it. You want to increase the minimum wage? I'm here for you, man. I want to see people make more money. I want this lady to have health care. I want her to have a family. I want people to be able to have families and be happy and not have to rely on these crappy jobs. But the solution isn't this. We're now seeing a report 1.4 million people will become unemployed. You voted for Joe Biden. He took your job away, but you chose that, man. So what else am I supposed to say? It's the regret, I suppose. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It's a different channel from this one, and I will see you all then.